Hey everybody, it's Mike, and today we're going to be talking about my opinions on the differences, similarities between narcissistic personality disorder and quiet borderline personality disorder, or what I hear is covert narcissism, or the covert narc. So, before I get into that, let me once again say I am not a mental health professional. I am not a certified counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist. I am not a mental health expert. I am not an expert in borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder or any other kind of cluster B personality disorder, nor am I pretending to. Anything I say is my uneducated opinion based on my experience and my observation and my intuition. And it should only be treated as such. If you have a serious issue, you should please approach a qualified professional in the mental health field. You are responsible for any actions that you choose to take as a result of watching this video. Excuse me, drinking my kombucha makes me burp a little bit, but it's so good. All right, so this comes from a question, and I see it a lot. It's a comment. The question is a great way to put a lot of the stuff that I see. I stay away from stuff that I don't have experience with and stuff that I don't feel like I have any real expertise in. It doesn't mean I don't have a lot of thoughts about it. Since you've asked my opinion, and since I believe that giving, I like to, if I can, answer people's questions if I find it interesting. I find this interesting. So this individual says, you use a lot of terminology I find when I read about narcissism. I wish I knew what the terminology was, because sometimes I'm using terminology as I know it. Sometimes I'm making up terminology, and I think sometimes I'm using terminology without realizing that it's also being flown around out there. Listen, I've been in therapy for 25 years probably, so I've heard a lot, but I had a real down-to-earth, or I still have a real down-to-earth therapist who sometimes throws things out, but for the most part doesn't. And so, a lot of it is just me talking and not knowing that I'm using the same terms as somebody else. I see this on the channel. Somebody more than once gets upset when I use the word codependence. And somebody got really upset with me and started telling me what codependent meant. And what this person was describing was my understanding of narcissism. This person was saying that a codependent is somebody who needs other people's approval. And that's not what a codependent is. And another person got upset with the word dependent because that sounded weak, and said, the only thing I was dependent on was, and that's not what codependence means. It's got nothing to do with being weak or dependent upon another person. So I use the word codependent. Go look it up. Don't take my word for what it is. Go look it up. I'm using it from especially when it comes from 12-step groups like Codependence Anonymous, or those kinds of things. That's where I'm using it from. So, by the way, another reason why the 12 steps are so powerful, there's a couple of reasons. One of them is because the 12 steps has revolutionized the psychology and psychiatry. Revolutionized it. Because what's brilliant about the 12 steps, not the program so much or people in it, the 12 steps. If you do the 12 steps, my suggestion is if you go to CODA or any other 12-step group, don't get involved in the personalities or the religion or the God thing. Follow the steps, which says find your own, source of spirituality. But don't let all those things get under your skin or bother you. Work the steps. The steps are the fastest way to get to changing thought patterns and unconscious emotional patterns and laying down new tracks in your brain. The fastest way to do it, in my experience. And that's because, look at who started it. The 12 steps, as we know it, started with Alcoholics Anonymous, which was created in the 1930s. And it was created by people whose lives depended upon them changing and getting healthier immediately. Because either they would die from drinking, or worse, a lot of people, back then in the 30s, what happened is if you were a drunk, if you were an alcoholic, you didn't get sent off to a posh, 40-day, hotel where you got to, have nurses take care of you and listen to people talk about the 12 steps. You got thrown into a loony bin. If you were an alcoholic, that was crazy, and they threw you in loony bins and put you in straitjackets. So these people had to, and the guy who started it was actually his wife almost chucked him into the loony bin. So these guys had to get better fast, or they were going to die. And they came up with a very practical program. And another thing is, these guys worked those 12 steps in like a weekend, as fast as they could. They didn't take a year. A lot of times people spend a year working on the steps. Those guys worked them, in a week, and then kept working them. So there's something to it. Go check it out. That's why I recommend it. You're not going to like some of it. You're going to have to really look at yourself instead of going and really, sort of pussyfooting around, well, they did this to me and that and all that. You're going to have to take a look at what your selfish, self-centered desires were that got you where you are. And not a lot of people have the guts to do that. Those early alcoholics, they had to, or they were going to die. They had no choice. So anyway. All right, so you use a lot of terminology I find when I read about narcissism rather than BPD. I have no idea if my ex was a covert narcissist. Sorry, I'm reading the question now. You use a lot of terminology I find when I read about narcissism rather than BPD. I have no idea if my ex was a covert narcissist or a quiet borderline. Do you have any insight about narcissists or what the difference is? And then this person says, I know it won't change my status as a codependent, but does the distinction matter? Well, whether it matters or not, I don't know. The truth is, you answered the question, the main thing, which is, it really doesn't matter who you're with. Maybe it'll be helpful to find out later, maybe in therapy, but the point is you're a codependent. And there are so many things that are the same. The distinction I'm making about borderline personality disorder is that in my experience, unless there's some comorbid, which is a fancy term of saying they've got BPD and narcissism and PTSD, unless there's some other things like that, my experience with borderline personality disorder is that they really honestly want love. They really aren't looking to harm anybody. They end up using the same and having the same effect on somebody as a narcissist, and they end up having the same impact as a sociopath, somebody who has no empathy. So from a practical perspective, you need to get the hell away from an untreated borderline as fast as you would get away from an untreated narcissist. And I wonder if there is there treatment for NPD? I don't know. You're right, it doesn't matter. But is there a difference? I don't have the answer to that. I'll share with you my thoughts, as unprofessional as they are. Based on what I've seen, narcissists, meaning, and bear in mind, there's a difference between somebody who's narcissistic. We all have narcissism. Everybody's narcissistic to some degree. It just means you're self-involved and selfish. That's all that means. There's a difference between that and somebody who has a disorder, like, a narcissistic personality disorder. That's different than just being narcissist. And I don't think a lot of people know the difference. And I've seen both narcissists and borderlines throw that terminology around. In fact, in my experience, borderlines or even, codependents who have familiarity with they have just enough knowledge of, therapy to be dangerous, and they accuse everybody that doesn't do what they want as being a narcissist. You know, I've been accused of being a narcissist more times than I'd like to. I mean, if I got $5 for every time, I'd be rich. And it's not going to be the end. I mean, you know, with me saying things like, categorically, anybody who's been in a relationship with a borderline for more than 48 hours is by definition a codependent. You won't change my mind. Nothing you say will take me out of that. They go, why are you so controlling? Why aren't you open to this? Could it be that you're wrong? You know, it's like, I'm not, that's something that narcissists do. They don't, you know, it's like, hang on, man, don't replay that garbage with me. That's just my opinion. I have a right to have an opinion. I have a right to have a firm opinion. If I turn out to be wrong someday, I'll let you know. But it's okay with me if you don't agree with me. Your recovery is your business. I have no stake in you getting better or not getting better. So, my experience is that narcissists, meaning like NPDs, so a covert narcissist, I'm taking that as somebody who's got NPD, you know, narcissistic personality disorder. A covert narcissist is somebody who consciously knows they are out to steal from you, take advantage of you, objectify you, and treat you like an object. They have no empathy. They don't give a crap. In fact, they might even get off on your pain and your discomfort and your misery. That's how I understand NPDs. So I'm assuming a covert narcissist is somebody who really hides it well. And they're very manipulative and very seductive, and they make you think that they're empathic and that they care about you, and so you get sucked in. But it's the same, yeah, it's basically the same thing. I am not a target for narcissists, which is why I don't understand it. I don't understand. I laugh at the videos, and maybe I shouldn't. I laugh at all of the videos on YouTube about how to the one thing you can say to make the narcissist buckle, the one way to destroy the narcissist, how to outsmart a narcissist. I mean, what the hell are you doing with him? You know he's a narcissist. What the hell are you doing? Get the hell out. The truth is, you'll never win. When it comes to NPDs and BPDs, whatever you think you're getting by engaging with them, you will not win. Because they have nothing to lose. You have everything to lose. They have nothing to lose. Because they already don't see you. They don't see you. One of the most helpful things I read about borderlines, and again, when I use the word borderline, I'm talking about untreated. I don't know what treated borderlines are like or what it's like for them, so I don't speak about what I don't know. Untreated borderlines, one thing I read which really helped me in the beginning was that, and I was asking the question, are borderline sociopaths? Because I was thinking about her behavior going, there's no possible way anybody who has empathy would ever do anything like that. It looks like the lights on the street across the street went out or something. That's what got my attention. So, you know, why anybody would want to try and beat a narcissist at this or, you know, talk them down out of that. You know, the only person who I think is capable of truly destroying a narcissist is a quiet borderline. Because they'll have the ability to last and not give up. I won't get into it. I know for a fact, based on mine, she absolutely destroyed a narcissist. Just wiped the floor with him. But she waited a really long time for that to happen. Let's see. So, narcissist. Sorry, I'm distracted because it looks like the street lamp went off on my street, and I think I have a guest coming later. Anyway, so the difference is that the covert narcissist knows that he or she is lying to you, manipulating you, and has every intention of feasting on you, and they consciously know that. The borderline, I don't believe that they have any awareness. I think that they mean what they say. I'm not saying that they don't lie and manipulate. I know that they do. I'm saying that, like, when they're love bombing you, they honestly believe what they say. When they put on the facade, they believe it. I think they believe that they love you, and I think that just like when they're splitting, they honestly believe what they're accusing you of. That's why it's a mental illness. It's divorced from reality. Now, as I understand it, the same scenario could create either a borderline or a narcissist, and it may have something to do, again, my guess based on things I've looked at, it may have something to do with genetics. It may have something to do with the sex. Males are more likely to become narcissists, and females are more likely to become borderlines. Borderlines, I've seen, been called vulnerable narcissists. But the same thing, the same thing that causes BPD can also cause NPD. So that's the sad part. It's still very sad. I would, it's hard to say. It depends on who you are. Like I said, narcissists. I was about to say narcissists are more dangerous, but that just shows that I can sniff out a narcissist. In fact, they're not going to mess with me. Narcissists want to be, they want to be alphas. That's why men are usually narcissists, because it has a lot to do with testosterone. I believe testosterone on the brain is going to create a narcissist, whereas estrogen is going to create a borderline. That's me guessing, but you get where I'm going. The more masculine, the more narcissistic; the more feminine, the more borderline. But obviously, it can go both ways. But to answer your question, that's what it is. To me, a narcissist doesn't believe it. I don't think a narcissist is aware that they have any, that they're in love or think they're in love or any of that other stuff. I think the borderline honestly believes that they're in love, and they honestly want to be loving and helpful. They just don't know how. But you're right; it doesn't change a thing, because doesn't change a thing, because ultimately the end result is the same. Borderlines, for all intents and purposes, do the same kinds of things and achieve the same kind of damage that a narcissist does. That's my uneducated opinion. Okay, thanks for the question.